Hi there, coming to you on this 25th of December 2024, also known as Christmas Day, recording in the basement. Don't judge. Anyway, wanted to, during this season of trades and trades and free agency, wanted to give some positivity in a sense with, as the PowerPoint slide would say, the Orioles, talking about them as usual, and a lot of the depth within the system and why a bit of the concerns maybe are not as warranted. I'll cover some concerns. There are concerns. Let's not play around here, but a lot of their outlook should be more positive than negative. So let's get into it. As we see on the screen here, we got the O's logo, AAA in Norfolk, AA, it's called Chesapeake now, it was called Bowie, Aberdeen, and Delmarva. Some cool logos. I would love it if they were all just birds, but that's just me. Anyway, so here we go. You got some starters. I'm not going to talk about every player, I don't think that's necessary, but what I want to point out here is clearly the organizational philosophy is have a stable of hitters, aka position players, and then fill out the pitching. You have a couple guys homegrown more or less. That'll be Bradish, Rodriguez, I want to say Kramer, and then Povich, I guess Wells. But as we can see on the screen, two of them have stars next to their name, which means they're injured. The people that are underlined are featured in the pictures, and the L means they're left-handed, obviously. And finally, if it's a number next to their name, that's how many years they have left. So the issue we see here is Eflin, Sagano both have a year. Rogers has 2, although he's been kind of garbage since arriving, and Kramer has 3. Everyone else there is under control for a while, which is a positive. And then obviously the people in the minors are all under control, should all have about 6 years, because that's how the contracts work. I would like, since Bradish is still injured, and I would not expect anything from him this season coming up in 2025, I would look to preferably with someone who has at least a couple years of control, since the window to me at this point is between 3 and 5 years. Just looking into the, we'll say long-term future, but mid to long-term. Do I expect them to win the World Series in 2025? Not really. Do I expect them to, should they be a playoff team? I think so. The AL is pretty weak. I think the entirety of Gunnar Henderson's contract, which is 4 years remaining, they should be at least in the playoffs, if not making a serious run. So anyway, on to the relievers. The highlight here, we see Bautista and Cano. I can't tell if that picture is blurry or not. On camera, it looks less blurry than it does actually as I look at it, but anyway. So the issue with Bautista, as we know, is he's coming off of Tommy John. It's a serious injury and recovery process. You don't really know what you're getting from him. Cano, compared to 2023, had a relatively poor 2024, although obviously I trust him. The last 2 on this list, on the left side that is, are on there because, going back to the starters, I included Povich, Rogers, Suarez under starters, and Wells. Any of those could end up in the bullpen, but yeah, Baker and Selby, maybe one could be on there, but that's not ideal. I mean, it's a long season, so you do need the depth. Another point here is I included 2 lefties, Gonzalez and Cruz, there just because they're the only lefties I found on Fangraph's list of players for the Orioles within the whole organization. So you basically have 3 guys with 2 or fewer years on their contracts under control left-handed wise for the bullpen. Again, for 1 year, that's probably not too bad. I would like another one. Tanner Scott would be perfect. AJ Minter is more than acceptable. even someone like Andrew Chafin would be all right. So I just like balance, and I think 4 of each, considering how often people get injured and whatnot, and you don't know what you're getting from Bautista necessarily, it would be helpful. Continuing on, we've got the captain there, Adley Rutschman. Is he the captain? Maybe he is. Probably is. Anyway, he has 3 years remaining. He's starting his arbitration in 2025. Backup is Gary Sanchez. I don't know why I just doubted his name for a second, but yeah. Gary Sanchez, they just signed him to replace James McCann. I think it is what it is on that one. Samuel Basayo, AAA, recently 20 back in September, I believe it was. The question with him and really everyone on this list is, are they MLB level catchers? And will they develop into that? I don't have the answer to that question, but that's the question. And the alternative, though, is keep Adley behind the plate, maybe lighten his workload as the years go on, and just continually sign 1 to 2 year backup catchers. That could work. I'll get to that point later. Continuing on, corner infielders pictured are Westberg at the top, Mayo at the bottom. I think this is another area of strength for now. As we can see, O'Hearn has 1 year left. I think all 3 of the guys on this list who have two or fewer years are underrated in their own way. I think Mountcastle, people take his defense, and he hit like 270. That's one of the better hitters on the entire team this past year, even if the power was down. Westberg, I don't know if he's underrated anymore. I mean, I don't think he's overrated, but he's definitely not underrated, I don't think. But yeah, O'Hearn, between first base, DH, and even some right field, he more than contributed. I already talked about Mountcastle, and then Urias, when called upon, is always solid. Rivera is there, I'd say, for insurance, and I put question mark AAA for Mayo because with all this depth, he could easily start out in AAA and say, look, we want you to work on hitting certain pitches, having better plate discipline. We want you to work on third base because we see you playing there, and we have Westberg, Urias, Rivera who can all play there. This is all taking into account no one's gotten traded yet, and it's entirely possible. I don't think it'll happen, but they could bring back Corbin Burns and just say, all right, let's just roll what we got. Or do a less taxing on the system trade. So Mayo, Basayo, etc. would all stay. Looking on the right side, can't say I'm overly amped up about any of those guys. Maybe Max Wagner, Lorenzo potentially down the road. He's an A-ball. The guy's a rookie. It's always a lottery ticket type of thing. So anyway, wouldn't say they're massively stocked long term. Going on to the middle infield, I would say this is where we start to have a little bit of an issue. As we see, there are 3 MLB middle infielders. One of them is coming off an injury to his arm and only has a year left, that being Jorge Mateo. Him and Gunnar Henderson are pictured. Gunner's your best player. There's 4 years of him. Make the most of those years, please. Jackson Holliday, not pictured, but should get a lot of time this coming year. He struggled a lot, I mean, let's just be honest. But the talent's there. He'll make his adjustments, get stronger. Hopefully changes his approach a little bit, have more of a singles, doubles hitter mentality that he had in the minors, more so than trying to hit bombs every time. Eventually, hopefully become a leadoff hitter. Don't have too much to say. I went to a game in Bowie back in, I think, July. I believe it was July, and saw Frederick McCosme. I was really impressed with him. There's also Leandro Arias, Griffo Farrell, worked a couple of his games at UVA, DJ Layton, Emilio Sanchez. So there's depth, but it's not so much on the brink, so to speak. Like Noel Romero, Levon Soto, Anthony Servideo, Fabian Josenberger. I wouldn't say any of those are you trust to come up anytime soon. I mean, if in a pinch, if you had to, that would do, but you'd rather not have that happen. Outfield, hurrying this up. I think this is one of the areas there is depth, but it comes with a caveat. And quickly, the caveat is Cedric Mullins has a year left. Depending on what they think of Enrique Bradfield, who's in AA, but could quickly get to AAA in 2025, I think there's a debate whether you keep keep Mullins for another year or two, if he'd even be open to extending, just to keep some continuity. Tyler O'Neill, as we see on the screen, there's that wedge by the 3. That means he has an opt-out. And the way I see this is if he has a good 2025, he'll opt out, get paid. If he doesn't, then he's around for 3 years. If you win a championship or even just go to the World Series, even to win a playoff series, you might just have to take that if he does have a great year and opts out. It wouldn't be ideal, though, to lose 2 starting outfielders after one season when you're already losing some pitching. And that was, if I didn't cover that already, that was mainly Eflin. But Bradish, I guess, could take his place. There's also Sugano. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. In AAA, Dylan Beavers, Judd Fabian, those are the 2 with, I guess, hopes that they'll be MLB guys. Their hitting's kind of struggled at times, though. Again, Honeycutt, Overn, Sosa, all those guys are in high A right now. I would expect at least one of those to make it. Honeycutt was a high pick. Has certain tools, but needs to work on his hitting. Just contact, limiting that swing and miss. Tavera, Sanchez, Martinez all look pretty good at the lower levels, so it'll take a few years for them. And hopefully at least one of those will pan out. So then we get into replacements. This is where we bring in the idea of depth. The question mark really at this point is Burns. At this point, I don't expect him to come back, which is understandable, but also unfortunate and kind of what I find pathetic is that there were opportunities to replace him and they haven't been taken. So many starters have gone off the board. Yes, it's a bit of an issue with the pay, but if you could get someone for 2 to 3 years, even one, who has the talent but maybe needs opportunity to showcase himself, why would you not do that? Walker Buehler being one, Kikuchi was another. I mean, even if he's more of a mid-rotation guy, that's better than not addressing the issue. Or taking like Dylan Cease and having to trade a bunch of guys or some quality for him for 1 year again, as if you haven't done that last year. Anyway, Santander, again, O'Neill, there's the up in the air part of his contract, whether he'll stay the 3 years, but if he does, those 2, him and Kjerstad, should more than cover his Santander, we're talking about output. Eflin, once his contract's up, Bradish will come back. I think that's pretty straightforward. That's like your probably 2. Sugano, he's 35. He'll more than likely stay for 1 year, and that'll be it. McDermott, Wells, Young as options there. Mullins, I put obviously Bradfield and Honeycutt. Those are your 2 fast, high-level defenders. Allows Kowser to stay on left. O'Hearn, counting him as the first base DH. I think one of Basayo and Kjerstad should cover that. Mountcastle, looking at first base, probably ends up being Mayo. Mateo is an interesting one because I think short term there's no one to replace him, but down the road you can maybe say one of those 3, Arias, Bencosme, O'Farrell, should be able to cover the infield. Second, short. Gary Sanchez, this is what I was saying earlier. Basayo maybe if his catching comes along in AAA and he shows, hey, I'm ready for the majors. Otherwise, he'll probably just be your hitter slash DH first base guy, rather. And then another prospect could be Creed Williams if he comes along. You could have a year of someone like Pinto or Hunt or whoever. And then O'Neill, if he opts out, you probably would want to sign someone, but already internal options include Beavers, Fabian, Overn. Probably Honeycutt as well, depending on what you do at center. So, like I said, there's a lot of solid options, nothing too crazy. I think the main guys would be the ones I highlighted there, Bradfield and Basayo. Basayo's at the top, Bradfield's at the bottom. Both of them featured for Bowie this past season. Those are probably your two within the next 2 to 3 years to be looking for. And there's our possible lineup. Again, some of the infield positions can be changed up. I mean, you could have Gunnar could be traded by then. I mean, hopefully not. Westberg could get traded to Seattle or something if they get desperate enough for pitching. Holiday could be a bust and not even be there. Rushman could be at first by then. Maybe Mayo's at third. Kjerstad could be at first. I have both Bradfield and Honeycutt as options in the lineup there, but I put Bradfield because he's closer and probably more of a sure thing. Kowser keeps his spot. Henderson can stay at short or move to third like I have in this graphic. The rotation actually isn't too bad, specifically the first three who are all under control for a while, and Kramer, because Kramer would be in his last year by 2027. That would be his final season, unless he were to extend. So that first four is pretty solid, actually. And then, as I said at the bottom there, Suarez, Wells, those guys are already at the majors. Also young, could be long relief. I put Cano and Bautista, obviously, because they're under control. I put De Leon as a bullpen arm, since the lefties will be gone by then. These are all just forecasting. So again, to reiterate, positives, Gunnar Henderson, see his numbers. A lot of right-handed pitching, some outfield depth, both there currently and coming along. A lot of guys coming along. Middle infield, more so down the road than right now, but two of them are 4+ years of control, plus Westberg. And then youth, that's probably the big one. There's not much cost right now, period. So they have plenty of financial flexibility. Weaknesses, as I said, there's not really an ace. Burns was the ace. Bradish could be if he comes back, but you probably want another. Grayson, health concerns. Povich had a good into the season, but wasn't great earlier on. As I said, left-handed pitching, there's not much, period. Catcher, you wonder if Basayo is going to be a catcher, or are you just going to have to find a backup most seasons to pair with Adley, and then Basayo is just on first. I think between Basayo and Mayo and Kjerstad, first base will be fine. Between Urias for a couple of years, there's also Rivera in a pinch, and then obviously Westberg, third is fine. Another comment, just that there aren't many long-term contracts. I wonder about that because mainly it's Gunnar Henderson at this point, and I don't think he's going to re-sign or extend, which is sad. So basically you have 4 years. We'll see how things pan out. I'm not going to comment too much on that one. And then the final question, do you need proven talent to make a deep playoff run? I think that's really the organizational question at the moment, because you have this young core, you have some pitching that's under control for a while, but there's no, other than Gunnar probably, there's no generational talent there. Potentially, sure. Right now, no. Adley's probably on the brink of that. more so than anyone. Maybe Cowser, maybe Westbrook, but maybe Jackson, maybe Basayo, maybe Mayo down the road. But by then we're talking about the window, at least with Gunnar, closing by the time they're actually established. So that's just a consideration. I would like a top level reliever that could be lefty or righty. I'd like a top level starter. I'd like one more bat, whether that's infield or outfield, because I mean, a couple guys are utility enough, Mateo in particular, that it doesn't have to be a specific position. But to win a World Series, you do need to have a couple of improvements, and so far it's been status quo. Even if they do get someone who could be considered an ace, that would still be kind of just like for like substitutions, and that led to 0 playoff wins once again, and a bit of a regression. So hopefully they'll fix up and things will get better, but thanks for watching.